right, welcome back to the 28-hour Money Bomb for 2015. I'm David Knight. I'll be your host this hour along with Gerald Celente, my guest. Of course, later in the evening, we're going to be covering live with analysis and commentary the presidential debates, if you can call them that. I think that's giving them more respect than they actually deserve. We're going to talk to Gerald Celente about how that's not really the important issue. What's really the important issue, and I want to talk to Gerald about this, is what he's got coming up, Occupy Peace. I've said many times, we need to stop being distracted by these celebrity Big Brother shows that they put on for us every 4 years, where we get to elect another dictator. And that, of course, is what this is. It's a reality TV show. We need to stop being distracted by that, and we need to get involved issue by issue on the things that matter. No matter how much you agree with the candidate, you're going to find there's many issues on which you disagree with him, but you're not going to be carried to a state of liberty and peace by these people. You just aren't. Look at the articles that came out today. We've got the DOD admitting that U.S. Special Forces boots are now on the ground in Syria, admitting it finally. We've been telling you this for years. This is where they've been going. And, of course, earlier this week, we had Vladimir Putin saying, you know, we're going to have to put Russian troops in Syria to stop this. We're already there. We're not waiting. The U.S. is already there. And, of course, we have started this. I just got back from vacation. I was out in the Pacific Northwest. We went out to look at the redwoods and the beautiful waterfalls and mountains that are in Oregon, Washington. Of course, we saw some of the effects of the wildfires that have now spread. It looked like earlier this week they were actually going to go to some of the same forests that we were able to see. We were horrified to see that. They have now contained this with the help of volunteers working locally against this. It's amazing when you look at the massive destruction that was there. A couple of days ago, at that point, they'd had 23,000 people displaced from their homes. They've had over 585 homes that have been lost, 9,000 structures endangered. Those people have been evacuated because their homes may be in the way of the wildfire. There is some progress in the last day or so. They only had 10% of the fires contained yesterday. That's now gone up to 30%. And I have to say, when I look at this, what we're trying to do here at Infowars is we're trying to warn people of the impending disasters coming our way. Whether it's the flash floods that we saw this week in Utah, whether it's the massive wildfires that are going on in the Pacific West, we are trying to warn people. Help us to warn people. Stand with us to warn people that these disasters are coming. And what we're trying to tell them, too, is it's not a natural disaster. It's not even incompetence. We have our political leaders who are going around lighting these fires. Literally. That's what they're doing in Syria. They're pushing us to a state of war with Russia. They want a nuclear war. They want a world war. They are displacing these Syrian refugees. And then what do? They're going to come on tonight on these debates like a bunch of arsonists who've been setting this fire, pretending that they're firefighters. They're not. They're psychopaths. Joining us now to join in and tell us about an alternative, something you can do to work for peace, work for the issue of peace, is Gerald Celente. He's got the Occupy Peace meeting that's going to begin this weekend. We're going to let him give us the details about that. Gerald Celente of trendsjournal.com. Gerald, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me on, David. You really summed up things well. They're psychopaths, and nobody wants to call them what they are.
Yes.
And to me, and I don't say this sarcastically, anyone that supports the Republicans and the Democrats are supporters of murderers and thieves. How many more people, when the Republicans are in, they're slaughtering people in Iraq under the name of, you remember, Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. And, of course, he didn't. How many people has the United States killed over there? Depending on who you read, 1 million. They destroyed the place. How about Afghanistan? So they're murderers, always in the name of bringing freedom and democracy. And on the other side of the murderers are the Democrats. They got a different line. They got a new rap. We're going to make it sound nice because we're Democrats. It's a humanitarian mission, I tells you. Well, Gaddafi has to go. Why, look what he's doing to his people. We can't stand back and let that happen. Hey, remember just about a year ago, you saw Obama take the stage. We got to save them Yazidis on the mountain. Don't worry about it. No troops on the ground. And now you're reporting, as just coming out today, we now have troops in Syria. But let's really be stupid. Let's swallow a lot of garbage that they love to feed us that they've been doing since, what, the Vietnam War. These aren't troops. They is advisors.
Yeah, exactly. They're advisors. Yeah, they're special advisors. You know, there's another article, Gerald, that I didn't go over. And, of course, that announcement didn't just come from our research. That's mainstream media, so now we can all believe it, right? That came out of CNBC. That was a breaking tweet that came out earlier. Defense officials tell NBC News that U.S. Special Ops forces are on the ground in Syria assisting Kurdish forces in the fight against ISIS. Of course, we've been reporting this for years, and we have verification of that as well. We have other stories that are breaking today. This one talking about Chechens in 2012 being escorted across the border by people who were with the West, who were training these people. And, of course, Chechens are the ones who have been, the Muslims who have been fighting the Russians. So what do? We go get our own Muslims and use them as proxies against the Russians and then say that we need to protect everyone against that. I want to get your comments on that. I want to let everybody know the number where they can call in to make a donation for our money bomb. Of course, that's why we're doing this 28-hour broadcast. You can call into our store operators at 888-253-3139. That's 888-253-3139. And right now, we've got Rob Dew and Leanne McAdoo over there answering phones, from what I understand. We also have specials at our store. We have each hour, we're going to be offering a particular product off for a special. We have some specials that are going to be running the entire 28 hours. This hour, we have 20% off of Prostagard, the hour of 5 to 6 while I'm here with Gerald Celente. And again, we have free shipping for the entire money bomb. This is a great time for you to stock up. We've got 20% off Survival Shield X2, 20% off Super Male Vitality, 20% off of Brain Force, 20% off of Silver Bullet, 15% off each of Deep Cleanse, Secret 12, Oxy Powder. So we got some great prices. Those are discounts over and above free shipping. And if you really want to help us, call up and just give us a donation for this special money bomb. This is why we're running this 28-hour marathon. We're trying to get the money to move to satellite so we can increase our reach. We're trying to warn more people about what's going on. And Gerald, tell us about what you're doing this weekend with Occupy Peace. People can go to occupypeace.us. They can read about it there. But tell us what's going on. Tell us the purpose of it. Tell us some of the people that are going to be there.
Let me start with the purpose. You know, I was watching Fox News today, and it was a disgrace. All of these people shooting off their fat mouths, men and women. Assad has to go.
Yeah.
Assad has to go. Who made this stuff up?
It's the 20 minutes of hate that we see from Orwell, right?
It is.
Yeah.
And when did this start to happen? That it becomes just, you know, a natural way of behaving, saying that what has to happen in another country. Who are these people to say Assad has to go? They know nothing about nothing. All they do, they could feed them into the other, what you were saying, they're psychopaths.
Yes.
They're buying the BS, and they're hawking it as war. Because here's the deal. Syria was a very educated and quite prosperous nation until 2011, when Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Susan Rice, Samantha Powers decided Assad has to go. Oh, he's not treating his people right. Who are we to say what other countries should do? They did it with Gaddafi.
Yes. And look what we've got there. Look what we got at Benghazi, and now it's become a breeding ground for jihadis. But, of course, that was by design, wasn't it, Gerald? Well,
again, you know, would they have invaded Libya if their major export was broccoli and they weren't sitting on the most valuable sweet crude on the planet?
And a massive water reservoir as well. They have an incredibly large freshwater reservoir under Libya that's probably in the long run going to be more valuable than their oil reserves.
And so now they've destabilized that entire area. You were talking about refugees before. When Gaddafi was in, no refugees were leaving. He had cut a deal with Berlusconi of Italy. So now they're flooding out of all the regions that have been destabilized by the United States, and nobody's talking about. The United States and its coalition of the killing, which include, of course, the Arab League. And so going back to why we're doing this, we are on the verge of the first great war of the 21st century. You noted today that, yes, there are boots on the ground in Syria. The way I read it, by the way, was looking at economic news, and it was a Reuters story about oil. And that in that story, they mentioned that the CENTCOM guy, you know, whatever his name is, you know, general this or that, said that we have troops there training the Kurdish people, you know, to overthrow the Islamic fundamentalists in Syria. What are we doing there?
Yes.
And here's the point. I want to make this really clear. They have all of these strategies to win. Let's clear the deck over here. Show me one victory. One. What are we in Afghanistan now? The longest war in American history by a long shot.
Yes.
Iraq, total disaster. Libya, disaster. And then you go back, well, we could have bid Vietnam, and we only killed 3 million people over there, and we didn't drop enough Agent Orange on them. They held us back. The military has not had one victory. I've had it. I've had it with this continual murderous streak of madmen and little crazy people in Congress sending our people to war, slaughtering innocent people, and tearing up the Constitution to do what they want, to fulfill whatever sick dream they ever have in their heads. That's why we're launching OccupyPeace.us for us. And here is the difference. This is like no other peace movement before. We have a strategy for peace. It's not about, oh, you know, peace and love and let's ohm and pray. Yeah, that's nice. But it doesn't work. Hasn't. So here's the strategy. Number one, honor thy founding fathers. We are here in colonial Kingston, New York. We're holding this rally. We're closing down the streets at the most historic four corners. The mayor here, Mayor Gallo, has given us permission to do it. He supports it. He believes in building communities, not nations. So step number one in honoring the founding fathers, from where the seeds of democracy were sown, where 90% of America's Constitution was written at the location right here when they wrote the New York State Constitution, when Kingston was the first capital. Every one of them, beginning with George Washington, a real commander-in-chief, a fighter, led the troops, a warrior, not these little boys with a bad attitude that shoot pool, play basketball, go for a couple of rounds of golf and drive pickup trucks and call themselves commanders-in-chief. This is a real man. His farewell address: no foreign entanglements. Madison, Jefferson, Adams, Franklin, every one of the founding fathers. So now, David, when I say that, the first stupid, moronic reaction I get from dimwits is, well, it's a different world now.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, different world. They were at war back then, big time. Anybody ever hear of France and England going at it? Hey, how about that wonderful march from Napoleon to Moscow with 425,000 men and coming back with 10,000? The only thing that's changed are the means of delivering the weaponry.
Yes.
But the madness of war was as mad then as it is now. But the founding fathers said, no foreign entanglements. So step one of Occupy Peace. Close all the bases overseas. In what, 150 countries? Some 1,200 locations? Bring home the troops, secure the homeland. And when they're here, instead of building highways in Afghanistan, the military-industrial contractors, refurbish our rotted third world infrastructure. So we're going to want a WPA project for the troops to repair and also not only repair it, but bring it into the 21st century. Because anybody that travels out of the United States, they go to Europe and many parts of Asia, we're third world over here, particularly our rail lines. So
that would be very different to rebuild our infrastructure instead of the foreign infrastructure, wouldn't it, Gerald? I'm looking, when we're preparing for this debate, I'm looking at what these GOP candidates have as their issues on their websites. And I see all of them talking about, oh, we've got a debt problem. That's a favorite topic of the GOP. But then right next to it, because most of them will put these issues in alphabetical order, right next to the debt is defense. It's like, you guys don't see the connection here? Over half of the money that we're spending is on all of these foreign wars that we're starting. You can't balance the budget, Republicans, without getting some kind of a balance in your outlook about what's going on with foreign policy. Stop the foreign entanglements and go back to the original founding fathers' ideas you just pointed out.
Again, and you pointed it out as well, and what you're saying when you put it together, you know, doesn't anybody get it in their head? What, according to Stiglitz in that report that he did, we're spending over $6 trillion in just Afghanistan and Iraq. Could you imagine what $6 trillion would do for this country, where we would be at since this war on terror began? And now the next element of this, in talking about Congress, is that, as you well know, Congress has not voted to go to war since World War II.
Yes, yes.
So we're going to demand that Congress vote. We're in Syria now. How could they take, this is against the principles of this nation. They are traitors. They are traitors to the nation, to the Constitution, and to what this country was founded upon. Call them who they are. They are traitors for going into war against Syria without Congress voting for it.
And you know, Gerald, it's Congress that has abdicated their power in this area. They could care less. They don't really want to have a vote where they have to do up or down. They would like to just say, well, it's the president that did it, because the other party can always blame it on him. The Democrats can blame it on George Bush. The Republicans can blame it on Obama. But whether it is war, or whether it is treaties, or whether it is legislation, they push it off to the president, they push it off to the bureaucracies. Congress doesn't do anything anymore. That's why we can't rely on these politicians. That's why we need issue-based movements like what you're doing with Occupy Peace. That's the only way that we're going to get this, and people need to wake up and do something about this before we get into the fight of our life with violence in this country, because we're not going to escape this. It's going to come to our country sooner than most people realize, and we're going to have to stop these arsonists who are going around the world lighting fires in our name.
I agree with you 100%, and we're on the exact same page.
Yes.
And because the next element of it is, again, Congress doesn't represent us. First, you said, you know, they don't want to take responsibility, so the reason, you know, so they let the president do what he wants. You know, the reason that they don't do it is because they're a bunch of little low-life cowards. Mm-hmm. And they're disgusting human beings, by and large, except the handful that aren't. And so going back to it, because they don't represent us, the congressmen and senators represent the people that give them the most amount of dough. They call it campaign contributions. Adults call it bribes and payoffs. We go, the next element of Occupy Peace is to have on each state ballot a referendum that when Congress is ready to vote for war, and we're going to force them to do it, we the people will tell Congress how to vote. Because we're the ones that pay for the war with our money and our lives. They never send the senator's son. That's all right. These guys, all these little boys and girls that'll be at the presidential reality show tonight, they'll all talk tough about war. Then which one of them is going to lead the charge? Which one of them is going to tell their sons and daughters to go sign up and fight? How about none? But every one of them will shoot off their fat little mouths and talk tough, and there's not a man or a woman among them. There's not a real fighter among them. So that's why we're launching Occupy Peace, to rebuild America. I was on with Ron Paul a couple of days ago, who a man I greatly admire, and the only person I would have voted for. I've said that in writing and on the air when he was in the race. And we were talking about these issues, about how they're destroying the nation. And no one wants to call it what it is. They are ruining our lives. And Congress is not a Congress. That's why Donald Trump could run over them. He knows what little gutless boys they are. This guy's ruthless.
Yeah.
You go in New York, east side, west side, all around the town, Trump building, here, there, everywhere. The guy is a ruthless, driven. These guys are no match for him. So that's what we're looking at. And we're launching this because we are on the march to war. And this is what I was talking about with Dr. Ron Paul. History is repeating itself. You said the violence is going to be sweeping here. It's a repeat of the 1930s. You had the crash of 1929, the Great Depression, currency wars, trade wars, World War, the Panic of '08, the Great Recession, currency wars, as everybody's screaming now, trade wars, part and parcel to the currency wars, and now we're seeing the refugees of war sweeping on the shores of Europe. They are leading us to the next great war. All it is going to take is a, quote, terror attack, false flag or real, and people will be tying yellow ribbons around everything that doesn't move, waving American flags, and we're off to what Einstein called the whole war scenario. I don't know how the Third World War will be fought, but the fourth will be fought with sticks and stones.
Yes, there are horrible weapons that they have at their disposal now. One of those is the propaganda of the media. And that's what we are here to oppose. That's what you're there to oppose with Occupy Peace, to try to educate people, to try to coalesce people around this issue, to stand up. Again, that website is occupypeace.us. We're going to take a quick break, Gerald, and we're going to come back in just a moment. We're going to play a report that Alex did on ISIS as all this news is breaking about the creation of ISIS, how we've been involved in getting Chechen Muslims who are fighting the Russians. We said, come on, we'll train you. We'll put you in Syria as our surrogates. That turned into ISIS. But now we have to have a full-on war against ISIS. We have to accept massive immigration into Europe, into the United States because of the humanitarian crisis that we have created. Yet what do we hear from the GOP candidates? We hear simply that, well, Obama should have done more. He should have done it sooner. We would have just had a greater humanitarian crisis earlier than we have it now. That's their only solution. There isn't any sense of the fact that we are going around the world setting fires, creating destruction that is far worse than these horrific wildfires that we're seeing out in California. Again, we're here for the 28-hour Money Bomb, the Infowars Money Bomb. We are trying to get this information out to a larger audience. We're trying to get this up to a satellite broadcasting so it can be carried by terrestrial television. If you want to help us with this goal, many people have stood with us over the years to get us to this point. If you want to help us to get to the next level, you can call in right now at 888-253-3139. We're taking donations. We have some of the members of the Nightly News there right now. Rob Dew, Leanne McAdoo are there taking some of your phone calls. If you want to help us and you want to get a special, we've offered specials to you as well for this special Money Bomb broadcast. We have 20% off of Survival Shield X2, Super Male Vitality, Brain Force, Silver Bullet. We have 15% off of Deep Cleanse, Secret 12, Oxy Powder. Free shipping for everything on the store. And, of course, we have 20% off just this hour, 20% off just this hour for Prostagard. We're going to come right back with Gerald Celente. And, Gerald, I want to have you talk a little bit about what you think might happen with the Federal Reserve. Why are we all waiting in bated breath to see what these private individuals are going to do? Are they going to raise interest rates? Are they going to pull out a pen and bust this Wall Street bubble that they've been blowing up for the last 7 years? They meet tomorrow. The Federal Open Market Committee is meeting tomorrow. We'll get Gerald's sense as to whether he thinks they are going to pull the trigger, or I should say push the pen in the bubble. And we're going to talk to him more about OccupyPeace.us. But first, this special report, Killing ISIS.
This is the new face of evil. This is what nightmares are made of. Ruthless, cold-blooded killers on a mission to wage war, to annihilate millions of people. We are their enemy, and they will stop at nothing to destroy us. All measures should be taken in our defense, that always will we remember the character of the onslaught against us.
الله أكبر الله أكبر برميل
I think it's impossible to say that the Syrian rebels are not associated with al-Qaeda. So there is a great irony that you will be arming forces that a normal common sense use of the word associated can say that these people are associated with al-Qaeda.
But you watch, in typical NATO-U.S. false flag fashion, the Assad regime is going to be blamed or accused of using chemical weapons against the so-called rebels.
There's a global crime syndicate that controls NATO and the major Western governments, and it is using al-Qaeda to overthrow secular governments.
Breaking news now from the war in Syria, and this could be significant. Reports that chemical weapons have been used in that conflict.
These are some of the scenes now circulating on the internet of distressed children apparently suffering the after effects of a chemical attack. Some of the video footage is too distressing to broadcast, and it is unverified. But there are scores of dead, among them very young children.
Good afternoon, everybody. 10 days ago, the world watched in horror as men, women, and children were massacred in Syria in the worst chemical weapons attack of the 21st century.
The Assad regime, and only undeniably the Assad regime, unleashed an outrageous chemical attack against its own citizens.
Now, after careful deliberation, I have decided that the United States should take military action against Syrian regime targets.
We can tell you beyond any reasonable doubt that our evidence proves the Assad regime prepared for this attack.
I've watched debates in Congress. A congressman asked Mr. Kerry, is there al-Qaeda? People say they've gotten stronger. He says no. I say officially, they aren't there. The main combat unit, the so-called al-Nusra, is a unit of al-Qaeda. They know about this. It's not pleasant for me to see this. Well, we communicate with them and assume that they are decent people. He lies openly, and he knows that he lies.
We're not really positive who set off the gas. I mean, the group that's most likely to benefit from that is Al-Qaeda.
Did President Bashar Assad gas his own people? Not according to a growing number of skeptics, including Alex Jones, syndicated radio talk show host.
I don't know who launched the chemical attack, but all the evidence leans towards the rebels having the motive to do it. And the Russians have put out a new report saying they have proof the rebels did it back in March of this year.
Some people here and there, amazingly, have questioned the evidence of this assault on conscience. I repeat here again today that only the most willful desire to avoid reality can assert that this did not occur as described, or that the regime did not do it.
All right, so what kind of proof is there that the rebels would do this? I mean, the rebels supposedly are supporting the people of Syria. They would actually sacrifice their own people in order to draw America into this war, to start World War III?
Well, look, the rebels are made up of jihadis, Al-Qaeda, and some domestic Syrians, but around 60%, many studies show, are Al-Qaeda, are jihadis. They've been wiping out whole Christian villages. So I don't think the rebels represent the Syrian people.
I believe you will not deny the fact that one hardly should back those who kills their enemies and eat their organs and all that is filmed and shot. Do you want to support these people? Do you want to supply arms to these people?
There's a growing volume of new evidence from numerous sources in the Middle East, mostly affiliated with the Syrian opposition and its sponsors and supporters, which makes a very strong case based on solid circumstantial evidence that the August 21st, 2013 chemical strike in the Damascus suburbs was indeed a premeditated provocation.
I would not understand or comprehend that Bashar al-Assad, no matter how bad a man he may be, would be so stupid as to order.
All right, we're going to stop that report there and fade it down because I want to get back to Gerald Celente and hear what he has to say. I wanted to play part of that report for you. It's very important that you hear that report. You can go see the rest of that report on our YouTube channel, on the Alex Jones YouTube channel. That is what we have been telling you for a very long time. Today, of course, they come out and they say, after denying it for years, they come out and say, well, yeah, now we've got troops on the ground. It's not a problem. Look at this article that just came out. This was actually today that we had an announcement from NBC saying defense officials are now confessing we have boots on the ground there. At the same time, there's a story that came out of McClatchy, D.C. that was linked on the Drudge Report that talked about the process, a very long process of a guy named Tarhan Bayatrashvili, who's now known as Abu Omar al-Shishani, if I'm pronouncing his names correctly. He's now got a new name. He's now working with ISIS. He's now a leader in ISIS, like the guys that John McCain met with. You understand that if we'd gotten John McCain instead of Barack Obama, we would still be here today. And the only thing that delayed this is not the reluctance of Barack Obama to try to step up the Syrian war, as the Republicans would claim. The only thing that delayed this was that we pointed out to you when they were doing these false flags with the sarin gas, we told you that was what was happening. And we had good people like Dennis Kucinich and others, Rand Paul, who said, we don't want to become the Air Force for Al-Qaeda or for ISIS. Again, we're here with the Money Bomb, the 28-hour special that we have to take Infowars to the next level. We have free shipping on all the products at our store. We have 20% off Prostagard this hour. Many other specials that you will find there that are running throughout the 28 hours. One of the biggest specials that's running throughout the 28 hours is free shipping. If you want to make a donation, you can call the operators at 888-253-3139. Again, that's 888-253-3139. I want to go back now to our guest, Gerald Celente, with Trends Research, and I want to talk more about the movement that he is trying to do to get people focused on issues. We need to focus on issues. We need to act locally. We need to act at our local government level. We need to act at the state level. One of the things that Gerald says, if you go to occupypeace.us, he says you have to fight for peace. You have to fight for your rights. They're not going to give you peace. They're not going to give you your rights. You must fight for them. Thank you for staying with us this hour, Gerald, and tell us, again, tell us more about what is going to be happening. This weekend is when you're kicking it off. Is that correct?
Yes. Actually, tomorrow evening, we prior to the rally on Sunday, that begins at high noon, and at that rally, kicking it off is going to be Ralph Nader. And we're also bringing in Cindy Sheehan, who, of course, you know, is an anti-war activist whose son was in Iraq, and Dr. Robert Thurman, Uma Thurman's father, and who's a peace activist as well, and Gary Null, who's really, he does great movies, very, very big in health, fitness, and nutrition, a crusader in it, and of course, an anti-war activist. And we're going to have marching bands, the whole thing, but not marching off to war, marching for peace. So we're close.
No presidential candidates, Gerald? We don't have Hillary Clinton there or Jeb Bush? Or these people are not showing up for peace?
I have to tell you, we have gotten solicitations from politicians, and we won't allow any of them to come here.
Good for you. Good for you. People need to understand, and you're right about that, Gerald. People need to understand it's up to us. We're not going to have these people do it for us. We have to get upset enough and active enough that we do it ourselves. We can't do it by proxy. They're not going to do it for us. They've got their own agenda. They've got their own interests.
And you said it perfectly, because you paraphrased the quote of Samuel Adams. You know, we have to get upset. We have to fight for it. There's a wonderful quote. It does not take a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen on setting brush fires of freedom in the minds of men.
Yes, they're setting brush fires of war. We need to set brush fires of freedom and peace.
And we're doing it. You're doing it. And there are enough of us. And it goes back to one of those great quotes. Yeah, if we don't hang together, surely we'll hang alone. By Franklin. So that's why we're doing this. And you were mentioning before about the boots on the ground. This is the article I was talking about earlier about oil prices. Potentially boosting oil was testimony from U.S. CENTCOM Commander General Lloyd Austin, confirming that U.S. Special Operation Forces troops are now on the ground in Syria, assisting Kurdish forces in their fight against the Islamic State and other insurgents, and of course, doing their best to overthrow Assad.
After they've been lying to us for 3 years, they now admit this. 3 or 4, I guess 4 years now.
And here's a story in today's toilet paper of record, paper of record, the New York Times, or as we would have said in the Bronx, toilet paper. New evidence in U.S. inquiry on ISIS data. Top officers accused of skewing reports. A group of intelligence analysts have provided investigators with documents they say show that senior military officers manipulated the conclusions of reports on the war against the Islamic State.
Really?
And it goes on. What a surprise, huh?
Yeah, same memo from these guys that we see all the time. When we were covering 9/11, we had reports from an ORAD general who said, well, actually, you know, what really happened is even more impressive than what we had in the official story. I was like, well, why don't you tell us what you think really happened? I mean, they admit that they're lying to us. They admit that they won't tell us what's going on, but we knew what was going on. We talked to other people. We had leaks from sources. We told you that this was happening in Syria for the longest time, and now, Gerald, they are admitting what we said all along.
Yes. And again, why we're launching Occupy Peace on Sunday is to stop this march to war that we're going on. Because, as you mentioned, I'll fight for peace, but I'm not going to die for war. That's crazy. I don't believe in it. And, you know, they not especially, you know, going in another country to go, for what? And by the way, we're in the build-up to the rally. We're having a conference. Actually, it begins tomorrow night with a reception over here. And Dr. Paul Craig Roberts is going to be here. And so the conference begins on Thursday evening, all day Friday, all day Saturday, special speakers coming in to not only speak about peace and prosperity, but about trends, what we see developing, profit opportunities, things to avoid, where we see the markets going, a lot about artful aging. So we have a number of speakers. That's the conference. And then, of course, the rally is open to the public. And so the conference you could attend, of course, but that's different. But the rally is on Sunday. And again, it's at the Four Corners here. Anybody that wants to come, we need all the people we can get, because this is just the beginning. This is the kickoff. This is the kickoff to Occupy Peace. And we are not going to stop until we bring it home, the prosperity and greatness that helped build this nation into the land of opportunity that's now become the nation of war. So that's
Well, that's a great idea, Gerald, and I really do support what you're doing, and I wish you the best of luck. I think it's a great idea. I'd encourage people to look at occupypeace.us, get more information about that. And I want to talk to you because we're talking about war, what is building up to it. And, of course, a big part of what you do there as the publisher of Trends Journal is to look at economic trends, of course. And tomorrow is the meeting of the Federal Open Market Committee. Everybody is waiting with bated breath as to whether or not Janet Yellen, the current head of this private central bank, is going to arbitrarily raise our interest rates or keep them at zero, where they've been inflating the stock market for a very long time. I want to get your take on that real quickly. Again, this is the 2015 money bomb to try to get us to satellite television. This is going to go for 28 hours. We have free shipping at our store. If you want to make a donation, just a cash donation, you can do that at 888-253-3139. Tell us, Gerald, what you think is going to happen with the Federal Reserve tomorrow. You think they're going to destroy the bubble tomorrow, or are they going to perpetuate it with some more quantitative easing and continue the zero interest rates?
Well, I just want to sum up what you will also refer to as a private bank, because everything here is connected.
Yes.
I have 6 words that have destroyed America: Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks.
Yeah,
let's go back to the question about the banks and the interest rates. The reason that we became a militaristic nation, in a very large part, was because of a guy from Princeton, the president, Woodrow Wilson.
Yes.
He's the man that gave us the central bank, the Federal Reserve, in 1913, and then sent us to World War I. A war that was over before we kept it going. Again, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks.
Yes.
So now, here we are, a war-torn nation and going broke. What will they do tomorrow? Well, according to most of the analysts on the exchanges, rather than the economists, they're not going to raise them. But if they do raise them, they're only going to be raising them, what, 25 or at worst in their world, 50 basis points. So it really won't have much of an effect. Where the effect happens is that when they began this Ponzi scheme, beginning with Too Big to Fail and TARP, and then Obama's $1 trillion bailout program, that was going to rebuild America, what happened was tons of hot money flooded into all these emerging markets. The commodity boom happened. So what happened? You had all these countries like Brazil, Chile, Ghana, Bolivia, Colombia, tons of cheap money coming in. Now the whole economy starts growing again. Commodity prices keep going up. But now commodity prices get down, according to the Bloomberg Index, to 16-year lows. Why this all ties into the rate raise? They borrowed that money in dollars. Now the commodities are crashing, and so too are the currencies of these nations. The latest report out is that for Brazil, for example, their currency has lost 40% against the dollar in a year. the rand over in Africa, the Turkish lira. You go around the world, Canada, it's not so far away. Because of the oil crisis, the commodity prices softening, they're now down to 2004 levels against the dollar. The Aussie dollar down 20% around the world, going back now to whether the Fed raises rates. Remember, they borrowed all this cheap money when it was cheap in dollars. The Fed raises rates, the value of the dollar goes up, and these currencies that are crashing, they crash even harder.
Yeah.
Because they have to pay back their loans also in dollars. And their currencies are being devalued. And then there's another end to the story that makes it worse. In order to stop inflation from running rampant, it's now down, hitting about 10%, for example, in Brazil. And of course, name the countries, Venezuela, Chile, all these countries that are resource-rich, Nigeria, Algeria, on. And a lot of them have no other economies, and they're run by corrupt governments, barely holding together. Now, because their currencies are collapsing, and it costs them more money to buy all these imported goods, inflation goes up. So they have to raise their interest rates to keep their currencies from collapsing. And that raises borrowing costs. And you need to borrow money when businesses are going bust because you're trying to rebuild the economy. So by them keeping these interest rates at these phony levels, and they have not raised interest rates in the United States since 2006, they created this bubble. And then, by the way, people say, well, you know, Salenta, you've said this before. Yeah, you're right. I said it before. In my wildest dreams, I never thought a bunch of crooks would be able to take over the country, give us zero interest rate policy that shafts every pensioner, every retiree, every person that wants to put their money in a bank and get interest on it that you don't get anymore. And I never, in my wildest dreams, would have come up with a concept like quantitative easing. And it's worldwide. They got another name for it over there in Japan. How about Abenomics, Dragenomics? What's keeping the Chinese markets up? The tons of yuan that they're dumping into the system. Just to put this into perspective, when China joined the World Trade Organization, and you mentioned before 9/11, that's right. They came in 2 weeks later when no one was watching to give them the nice, dirty deal that Slick Willie Clinton laid out for them with NAFTA. Yeah. Oh, and you folks out there that voted for Obama, you remember when he was candidate Obama up in the Rust Belt states and said, folks, I'm going to revisit NAFTA. This is an unjust law that's now giving us the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Anyway, going back.
That's a whole story that's going to be coming up. And, of course, they're not going to be talking about that at the debates either, are they, Gerald? No. It's absolutely amazing. We're talking about how retirees are completely getting screwed with this situation of no interest rates. That truly is amazing to me because you and I are both old enough to remember when there were usury laws in the United States. They could not charge people more than 10%, but they actually did pay people interest at the same time. Look at their interest spread now. They're getting their money for 0%. They're paying out 0% to anybody that saves with them. But if you got a credit card or something like that, 15, 25, 50% interest rate, these people are criminal loan sharks.
So going back and looking at the whole story, and I mentioned when China joined the World Trade Organization, their debt level was $2 trillion. So I'm talking about this Ponzi scheme that's a huge bubble now. It's now up to $28 trillion. $28 trillion, and we're watching the markets collapse in front of us. Yes. They have a national team that goes in the last few minutes and pumps up the market. You look at the charts. The last couple of minutes, the last hour, the Shanghai index goes back up. It's down the whole day. So going back to the whole story, it's exactly what you summed up. The usury laws, they've sold us out. So whether the Fed raises interest rates or not, if they don't raise them, the Ponzi scheme continues a little more. if they do raise them a little bit, it starts unraveling all of these emerging markets where money's being sucked out of them in rapid level as we speak. Now you put another layer on top of it. Social unrest. We were talking about refugee problems in Europe. How about all the people fleeing out of Sub-Sahara and Africa where their economies are collapsing and they're looking for work?
Wow.
So when all else fails, they take you to war.
That's where it's going. That's where it's going when this bubble bursts. And, of course, you're talking about the emerging markets, but what we look at is the stock market, the fact that it's a Ponzi scheme. There's going to be a race for the exit once they just raise interest rates a little bit, people are going to say, all right, that they're going to end the Ponzi scheme. It's starting to unravel. Like you point out, it's going to be a race for the exit. I could talk to you all day, Gerald. I wish we had more time, but we've got a break at the top of the hour. Thank you so much for joining us on this Money Bomb. You've been a valuable part, a valuable asset for us to get information from through the years here at Infowars. Thank you so much. Again, Gerald Celente, Trends Journal, and he has Occupy Peace that is going to begin. It's tomorrow, right? Is that correct, when the conference begins?
And the big rally is on Sunday, so please be here.
Yes, very important. We need to work ourselves for freedom. We can do it ourselves. We don't need to have some politician do it for us. Thank you so much for joining us, Gerald Celente. And again, we're going to be taking a break, and we're going to have Leanne McAdoo and Jakari Jackson are going to be doing the next hour. This is 28 hours of the Infowars 2015 Money Bomb. We have free shipping on everything at the store. This hour, we have had a discount on Prostagard, 20% off. We can extend that for about another 5 minutes. If you want to lock in that price, we'll extend that 20% off of Prostagard. Look at what we have at the Infowars store. We got 20% off of things like Survival Shield X2, Super Male Vitality, Brain Force, Silver Bullet. If you want to just make a donation to help us to get to this next level with the satellite broadcasting system, that's 888-253-3139. Again, 888-253-3139. Jakari Jackson, Leanne McAdoo are going to be coming in, and we are going to also have live coverage of the Celebrity Big Brother debates from CNN tonight. We're going to have analysis and commentary live as it happens. You can watch it here. We'll be right back.
I don't need to tell station owners, managers, and program directors that the American people are more upset and more politically awake than they've ever been. That's why Donald Trump, even if you love him or hate him, is so popular, because he's not reading off a teleprompter, he's not mincing words. And that's the reason that Infowars and my syndicated radio broadcast over the last 20 years has exponentially grown. We now reach, not just in the United States, but across the world, 20 million people at least every single week. And in 2015 and 2016, I want to double that number to 40 million people, promoting a message of basic liberty and freedom that made this republic, the United States of America, the model of a free and prosperous nation worldwide. I'm a libertarian broadcaster. I wear my bias to tell the truth and to promote free market entrepreneurial liberty on my sleeve. Let me share with you another key point. Infowars has a giant grassroots audience in every town and city in this nation, and they will loyally tune in to your broadcast or to your cable channel and will tell their neighborhoods, their coworkers, their friends and families about the broadcast. And so will we. We intend to promote channels that we're on a daily basis so we can push our giant internet AM and FM audience to your local TV station. In closing, let me tell you why I'm doing this. I already do 4 hours of radio a day. I already have internet online news. I already have websites that dominate not just alternative media, but mainstream media. Why would I want to then launch the next level and put this programming on satellite? It's because it's my responsibility. I must, like my forebears did, like your forebears did, reach out, trailblaze, expand, and defend this republic. I don't want to be, to quote Braveheart, many years from now, lying at home in my bed, wishing that I would have taken action against the unraveling of our freedoms. I'm making a stand. And I know that many station owners, managers, and program directors care about this country as well and want to shake up the dialogue and get people talking to create a grassroots movement of liberals and conservatives and libertarians to come together and celebrate America and what made us great again. That's why I'm really doing this, because it's my responsibility, but also because I got a file in there of over 100 cable channels that have contacted me the last few years saying, please put it on satellite, please close caption it, please package it so we can carry it. And just since we turned on the satellite a few weeks ago, we already have more than 10 affiliates that are carrying the show. 3 cable systems and 7 UHF VHF stations. One of them is on basic cable and is a decades-old news and information channel in Houston, and they're getting a great response.
Yes, the feedback that I hear is, of course, it's refreshing for the simple reason it is totally different. And again, as I stated, they get a perspective from Infowars that they do not get anywhere else. And for that, it's a very popular show on our network, or a very popular channel, I should say, because it's a 24-hour channel on our network. And it has a tremendous effect because people can't get this type of information from any of our other 250, 300 channels that we carry on our network. Should be on everybody's cable television network.
Pick up Infowars today. Whether you carry it on the weekend for 2 hours or whether you carry our entire lineup, we welcome you to visit Infowars.com/affiliates or to call the phone number on the site, and one of our representatives from the Infowars News Center in Austin, Texas will get back with you. Infowars Live, the 4-hour radio/TV show, is absolutely free to air, and so is Infowars Nightly News. You're even free to take excerpts of it for your own news programming. It's absolutely free to air. All we ask is that you not edit the pieces themselves. So you can take it in part or in whole, whatever you want. We just simply want to get the word out to the people and are very appreciative for you taking out the time to look at this information.
Did you know that only 6 corporations control 90% of what millions of Americans see, hear, and read every single day? It's the illusion of choice. Think about it. The mainstream media is owned by only a handful of mega corporations with vested interests. But on the other hand, the internet is an interconnected network of billions of sources. So you can research information for yourself from multiple sources, or you can blindly accept what you hear or read in the mainstream media, never questioning what you are being told. This gives you a false sense of reality. I mean, do you actually know what you think you know? Or have you been programmed to accept someone else's version of events? Think about it. This is Darren McBreen, and I want you to break the matrix at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.tv and listen to The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on your mind.